Would you go first? I'm just curious. Are you willing to go first? Today, we're talking about who would be willing to go first when it comes to offering compassion and curiosity over judgment. And I'm Erica, your host of Powered by Joy podcast. And here we're going to be talking and continue to talk about seeking more joy and feeling more alive in our lives and not having Groundhog's Day, bored, stuck, frustrated with life. And we're doing it without sacrificing our commitment to our family and friends. So back to the question, are you willing to be first? Would you go first? So I started thinking about this concept because I was thinking today, I'm going to share a personal story of my learning. And I'm going to start by telling you about how I had an appointment this morning, and I got there and I waited and I was prepared with stuff to do, and I had the gentleman come out and tell me that things were not done correctly in a way that they would have all the parts that they needed. And I immediately felt some tension in my body, and I was starting to get more and more irritated after hearing the explanation, and was like, it would have been nice if you just called and let me know you didn't have everything you needed so I didn't have to drive down here to find out. And I was really proud of myself for not unleashing my other side. And he was like giving his explanation, but I still left there like pretty pissed because I felt that there could have been some phone calls and communication done. And this is obviously someone who owns a small franchise and seemed very invested, and listening to him talk with other customers, he seemed like he really cared and was very kind to people. But I left there totally irritated and was like, anyways, the point here is that even though I'm trying to learn to practice what I'm going to talk about today, it is a practice. I am guilty of struggling to come to this place quickly sometimes, but it sent me on a path of just thinking about things today and realizing how once I kind of breathe and think about it, I was like, you know, as a business owner, we don't usually purposely fuck up and not get a sale because we didn't have everything ready. Like, that means he didn't make money on that appointment he had scheduled that time allotted. So, like, as a business owner, I understand that he really probably didn't do it on purpose, and I'm sure he was actually frustrated too. And so I tried to get in a space where I thought about like, oh, he's probably frustrated, and just kind of put myself in his shoes and trying to have a little compassion and be like, okay, I'm sure the intention when he woke up this morning wasn't to waste my time. So that led me to thinking about what I was going to talk about and thinking about if I'm willing to go first and wondering if you are. Okay, pausing to check my notes. Okay. Can you be courageous? Edit. Can you be courageous enough to give someone the benefit of the doubt? When I thought about that, I thought, that is a weird phrase. Benefit of the doubt. What the fuck does that even mean? And so I started thinking about it, and I looked at the word doubt, and it talks about not being certain, lack of certainty, or let me check my notes. It also said, especially how good or true something is, like not being sure of that. And that's something maybe questionable when you think about doubt. And I thought, do we really want to, like, it's nice to think of, oh, I gave them the benefit of the doubt, but I thought, couldn't we maybe instead switch that phrase out and make it the benefit of compassion and curiosity instead? It doesn't give that negative connotation and imply that, our first thought is probably that the person on the other end of whatever's happening in my relationship or interaction with people, that maybe they are not coming from their best intentions. And can I be brave enough to go first and give that compassion and curiosity and go into questions instead of jumping to being certain that I know what they're thinking, or that I understand where they're coming from, or why they made the choices they did, or the action, or understanding and being certain of why they took the actions that they did. And I am talking about this because I am always having to work on this. Like I said, it's the word practice. So guilty of this, and trying to actively work on this, because I started thinking about, like, if everybody's go-to was to be more like, first thought was to give the benefit of compassion and curiosity instead of assuming someone's trying to waste my time or hurt my feelings or cross my boundaries or just doesn't give a fuck, whatever the thing is. If we instead were like, I wonder if, maybe they had a really bad fight with their partner this morning, and so their head's just not on straight and they forgot to make a phone call. Or maybe they have a stomach ache because they ate the wrong food yesterday. Let's see, just like really trying to, maybe I don't even have the actual answer to it, but like just trying to think, okay, the chances are that this person is doing the best they can at the moment with what they know and have and how they are, like what their mind presence is. And that most of us, and this is not a blanket statement because we all know there are some nasties out there, and there are days where we're certain levels of nasty ourselves, a nice spectrum of grumpy or nasty. But I do think that if we all try to go first and be the first one to give someone the benefit of the kindness and compassion and curiosity, then what would happen? What would the trickle effect be? So now I'm not as mad or angry, and so I'm not going to have my next interaction with the next person I talk to be me angry. And it also might be that I'm spilling my frustration out onto somebody else, which I was guilty of doing this morning when I first got into my car. And I was like, why did I do that? Like, why did I need to share that level of energy that was not a great high vibration, was not joy-filled at all, wasn't kindness and compassion at all. So this is me being real. Very guilty of the same things. And what would the world look like if instead I had been like, this is probably frustrating for him just as much as it is me, and being curious and not assuming it was because he just didn't care, something like that. If we made it safer for people to make choices and show up differently. So here's another example. I think about how, I will be out in public and maybe I'm interacting with somebody, and maybe they're just very impatient or frustrated, and depending on how I show up in that situation and interact with them can completely change the rest of that moment and their day, and can either make them even more upset and frustrated and on guard and full of stress and anxiety. Or maybe I have a short interaction with you at the grocery store and your kid's screaming in the cart and you're hungry, they're hungry, you just need to get home because the dog needs to be let out to go pee, and I insist on going first in the line. Or maybe I can have some compassion and patience and like say, hey, why don't you go first in line, and maybe talk to their baby and like distract them or smile or make goofy faces so the baby like gets distracted and stops screaming or something. But like that, instead of being like, oh, like what is this mom's problem? Like, why did she come to the store when their baby was hungry and cranky? Like, I would never do that. Like totally different reactions. And I just think about how we can choose to go first and create an environment that makes other people's experiences either easier or better. And like everybody talks about, we never know what somebody else is going through behind closed doors or behind the curtain. And I think about how most of us, when we're asked like, how are you doing? Are you interacting? There's this mask we put often that, oh, I'm great, everything's fine. And what would happen if we all were able to know that the other end of the conversation, the other person we're interacting with, is going to come from kindness, compassion, and curiosity and not judge me? I'm probably going to be more willing to be vulnerable or express where I'm really at. And maybe I get my needs met because, like, maybe someone asked me and I'm like, you know what, I'm having a tough day. I'm sorry, I'm really tired and stressed and I just want to get home because I need to let my dog out that's been sick or whatever. Like, if we all knew that that's where we were coming from and gave that benefit to each other and made it a more safe place for us to not have to wear a mask. Think of how much less energy it takes to just be authentically yourself, not having to put on that mask of like, I've got everything together, everything's fine, like it's okay that my baby is screaming, like it's all, I got it all under control. That maybe it would be okay to like go, oh yeah, this is not fun, I can't stand grocery shopping when the baby's cranky. Like, that's a way more authentic conversation. And when we are that able to be that real in our response, because we can sense the other person has compassion and curiosity and they're not judging us and what's happening, it creates a connection or an opportunity for connection. And that goes in our relationships to our closest ones. And so I've been guilty of my love coming home from work and seeming like he's not in the best mood. And my old self would have just assumed like, oh, he must be mad at me, there must be a problem or whatever. And I would just put my dukes up, put my armor on, and be like on defense like the rest of the evening and be like ready to go. Like, just in case he turns that on me, I'm ready to go. Instead of being like, hey, how's your day? Like, are you okay? Do you need anything? Do you just want me to leave you alone? Maybe you don't want me to chat your ear off and update you on how my day went. What? And thinking about like, okay, maybe he just needs a half hour to just like decompress from the day and has nothing to do with me. And maybe he, got bad news at work today or something. And so even in our closest relationships, it can actually be more challenging to be first to offer that compassion and curiosity and not have judgment or assume, the whole ass out of you and me thing. If we can come with curiosity and not judgment, then it allows us to come in closer and connect. And it gives a safe space for him to be like sharing, I had a bad day at work or whatever the thing is. And that's a real connection. It helps his stress level come down. It's also a lot less energy to like keep that buttoned up and to pretend like everything's fine or just shove it and bury it like a lot of us do. And I just was thinking about how if we were willing to be courageous and go first in being the ones to switch our thinking, and I guess we could use the assume word again, but assuming people are coming from what they can do their best right now. So their best might not look too pretty today because they've got a lot of shit on their plate, right? And so the more we can offer that, the easier we might make somebody else's burden. I'm gonna check my notes. When we think about the burden, it can feel like when we have to go out and carry or put on that mask when we're really hurting inside, can feel really heavy and can make us feel even more isolated and alone. And I think part of it might be that we have to also, being the person that's suffering or struggling, it's hard to do sometimes because of our past experiences, maybe our childhood lessons we learned about how people are. It can be hard to trust that other people are going to give you a soft landing space, or maybe that they can really relate and they've been there. And so being courageous and going first, and sometimes reaching out and being authentic and being like, I don't have it together today, I'm really struggling, not only helps you connect and possibly get support, and most often we do get support. People can be way more willing to, like, they may have solutions or they can offer some help in the moment. You know, if we don't ask, then we can't receive that support if we're not brave enough to go first and be real and take the mask off. So I just think about how depleting and draining it is, and that it can cause more anxiety and stress when we have to keep that, feel like we have to keep the mask on. And honestly, taking the mask off doesn't mean you're crying and dumping and barfing all the time, and like everybody who listens to it and you tell them every explicit detail of what's not going right in your life. But it is okay to show up and be like, at the grocery store, how are you? I've had better days. And let me tell you how many times when I've answered stuff like that, instead of being like, I'm fine, the checker will stop and look up at me and like, oh. And I had one gal that was like, I'm having a hard time. My stomach is really bothering me today, and I really wish my shift was over. And I was like, you know what? I'm so sorry. That's a tough place to be in. We both got to kind of connect, and like it raises up our vibration a little bit. But if we both just said, I'm fine, we're both staying in that space of suffering and burden or disconnection, and just how much easier it can feel to just sit in our own real self, where we don't have to put on that mask, and trust that, people are probably more accepting than we think. And if they're not, it's okay. It doesn't mean that's a reflection on you and that there's anything wrong with you. That means they're hurting and not able to step up and offer you kindness and compassion. So just remember, if you are brave enough to go first and put yourself out there and be authentic, and you are not met with the same kind of authenticness and compassion, curiosity, remember that person also might be hurting and may also just not have the tools or skills to show up that way, and that's okay too. Don't lose heart, don't give up and think that's how everybody is, because there are tons of us out there that are willing to make that real, genuine connection because we've been in the same place, or we've been hurting, or we've been lonely, and we want to offer that to others because we know what it's like. And so I think about, pause. We're gonna have to edit that part. The next question would be, how do we become willing to go first with offering compassion and kindness? And I would actually say it's by starting with ourselves. I know it's kind of a crazy idea, but remember that it usually needs to start within ourselves first. So we have to think about, usually if we're being harsh and judgmental of ourselves, it's really hard to offer that to other people. And so how can we start by just practicing this idea? Start by just practicing with yourself. So let's say you wake up and you forgot to let the dog out. We just talked about this. You forgot to let the dog out to go to the bathroom, and you left, and you're like, oh my gosh, like I totally screwed up. I'm making this mistake. Instead of starting to jump into criticism, can you offer yourself kindness, compassion, curiosity? And maybe instead you're like, oh, why am I being so forgetful today? Oh, pause. I didn't sleep for shit last night, or I haven't had a good night's sleep in a week. And so, yeah, I'm probably not going to remember stuff because my brain is checked out and I need some rest. Then we get to offer compassion to ourselves and be like, okay, this stuff's going to happen as long as I'm sleep deprived. So that's pretty much anywhere. If you have kids, that's like, newborn, to they've moved out of the house. Oh, wait, as long as you're a parent, there's a chance you're not sleeping. Okay, I'm not trying to be negative here. Anyways, practicing with yourself first, and like you can do the same thing. You have something happen, you're frustrated, or you have an intense reaction, or you feel a negative reaction towards yourself, catching that self-talk. We have to kind of set that intention to do it. So maybe it's in the morning. Hey, today I'm going to try to catch myself when I start ripping on myself. And I've told the people before, I will put on a bracelet. You can put on a rubber band if you want, a hair rubber band, anything, but putting it on, and I'll be like, okay, I'm going to catch myself anytime I'm going to try to pay attention to any time that I'm criticizing or being mean to myself. And it sets that intention. Remember, our brain is like a supercomputer, and it starts to watch for that. And when we'll start to notice if you do set that intention. And when you start to notice, that's when you get to catch yourself and pause, ask some questions. Why did I do that? What's happening right now? Like, is this something I keep doing? Do I need help? Do I need to ask for help? Like, what's going to help this to stop happening? Or, what do I need right now? And really listening to that gut or heart and seeking answers that are kind and from love and not criticism and anger and judgment. So that's where we start. So if you're wondering, how in the world do I start this? You start with yourself. And let me tell you, it starts to get easier with other people. So I've ranted about the left lane campers in the highway before. That is people who drive in the left lane when there's lanes, and they're camping out in that fast lane that's there for passing only purposes, and they don't move back over. They're just hanging out, camping in that left lane. There's plenty of room for them to move over, but no, they're hanging out over here. Okay, those people, like, I'm going to just try to come up with a question in my mind. I might not be able to ask them, but instead of getting angry about it, I've been practicing, trying to think, why would they be doing that? So same thing with, like, if someone cut you off in traffic or whatever, like maybe their baby's crying, maybe they have to go to the bathroom really urgently, whatever the thing is, just trying to come from a place of like, maybe you can't ask them directly or interact with them, but somebody does something that affects you. And, same thing with this morning, like, okay, like, is there a chance that he's going to be just as pissed too that someone let him down so he couldn't do the job on my vehicle? And just coming from that place, and it will become more of a habit and becomes easier to practice on ourselves and then them. And if you need an even more fine-tuned place to start on how to have more compassion and curiosity when you're talking to yourself, or maybe this is within your closest relationships, can you pay attention and listen to when you use the words always and never? And when you're talking to yourself and you're like, I always forget to lock the door. Maybe there's a chance that one time you locked the door. So now this statement is not true. So when you listen to people who do self-help stuff, I've picked up on over the years, they talk about trying to remove always and never when you're making, their blanket statements. And so, like, when we're talking to ourselves and we're learning how to practice having compassion and curiosity, if we can start with the baby step of removing the words always and never when we talk. I never stick to my commitments. Well, maybe you brush your teeth every day. That's a commitment to keeping your teeth clean. That's a commitment you're keeping. Like, can you find things that show you that that's not true, that you never or always do something? And that's a great place to start too. So if you need super baby steps, try removing those words. Next, practice getting curious with yourself when you make mistakes, and then see, can you practice that when you're out in public? Can you go first? Can you go first by starting with yourself, and then go first in public and be the first one to offer that compassion and curiosity? And I like to say, in the words from the movie Talladega Nights. If you're not first, you're last, right? So you're probably not winning if you're sitting there judging people or yourself. You're probably coming in last in your emotions. So why not be the first to offer compassion and curiosity and see what happens? Make it a game and see how much different your life feels when you do it more and more. So that's my challenge to you this week moving forward. And I thank you for tuning in and listening. I hope you found it helpful. If you're somebody who really struggles with this and you're even struggling to get started with changing up how you talk to yourself and you want more tips, or you want to talk through a plan of diving into maybe why you do that, where you go straight to judgment. Like, I've practiced it myself, so I've had to dig in and do some of that dirty work and look at why I do those things. Never fun. But if you need help with that, you can certainly reach out via email or schedule a one-on-one with me. And I would love it if you would share this with other people that you think would find it helpful, so that you can help me build this community. And I hope you have a lovely week and you continue to go on a quest for joy in your life. Thank you.